Hi guys, thank you so much for joining this 7 days class. My name is Samuel Linus and I'm super excited to have you here. At nedi, we are a peer-to-peer edtech platform that allow people to learn in peers, groups, and communities. It simply means that gone are those days when you'll be learning alone and you have questions to ask, but nobody to ask questions. You wish you're a part of a community. You wish you have a mentor. You wish you have a learning mate, somebody you guys can learn and grow with. But unfortunately, you're learning online, so there is no one like that. But with nedi, you have access to all of those things and even more. When you enroll for our platform, you have access to a one-on-one mentor. You'll be able to schedule a clarity call with your instructor at will. You will also join a support group where you can ask questions at any point in time. You will also be part of a weekly live class where you'll be learning and growing with other people. And guess what? You will also be paired with an accountability partner, somebody that you guys can learn and grow with and also build rapport as you advance in your career. And at the end of the career roadmap, you also get personalized portfolio review and job support. Don't forget to go on our platform and turn on your subscription. It's just a monthly token. That being said, don't forget to also subscribe on this particular YouTube channel so you'll be notified when we upload subsequent lessons, right? So without wasting much of our time, let's get into this particular video.
Welcome to this video. In this video, we'll be diving straight into two principles that we'll be learning in our first day. And those principles will be the principle of alignment and spacing. So I will just get started immediately. But before I get started, I would also want you guys to know or assume that we have just been contracted by a company or by a fintech startup actually, to build a landing page for their business. So that is what we'll be doing in this particular video. So the first thing that we're going to do is to click on the frame tool as usual and select a desktop frame. So the recommended one will be desktop 1440 by 1024. So this particular desktop frame here is basically best, right? So the first thing that we want to do right now is to define our layout. So when you want to design, you don't just start designing. Because you want to follow the principle of alignment, the first thing you want to do is to define your layout. So I will go over here under my layout. I'll click on this particular plus icon. So, okay, sorry, I went to click on auto layout. So under layout grid, I'll click on this plus icon. So once I do that, I'll click on this other icon and I'll click on columns. Now, the usual recommendation is 12 count. So I'll just make that a 12 count column. For the margin is left and right, we're going to be using this for alignment, right? So we're going to be making that 100. Why for the gutter spacing? The gutter spacing is the space between each of this column. So because I want to achieve very nice spacing, I'm going to give it at 40. Now, you will observe that I've already started observing some form of alignment. I've basically drawn how I want my design to look or how I'm going to basically align my design. Nothing basically inside a section will go outside this particular margin. So that is the essence of this particular margin. Nothing inside a section will go outside it, right? I'm also observing this principle of spacing. So when you want to observe the principle of spacing, you have to choose the grid point. What grid point do you want to use? What grid point do you want to use? Now, I'm using a grid point of 4. I love using 4 actually. So it simply means that if you're using a grid point of 4, everything should be divisible by 4, right? That's what it just simply means. Or you multiply every spacing that you're going to use in your design by 4. So don't forget that we are using a grid point of 4. That's number 1. Number 2 is the fact that we have to design our layout in order for us to start our design. First things first. So once we have this, I can just go ahead and save this so that when I'm designing subsequent frame, I don't need to start creating it all over and all over again. So I'll add it to my style. So as part of my grid style, I'll click on this particular icon here. I'll click on this particular plus sign to create a style, and I'll just name this desktop. All right, this is my desktop layout, right? So I'll click on create style to basically create this. So I'll create it. So that is now part of my style. So if I add a new frame, I will be able to do that. So the first thing I actually want to design is the navigation. So for the navigation, I of course would need the logo. So I'll go and pick the logo from my system and I will come over here and I will paste it. So now this is the logo of the application that we want to design. So the name of the firm is called plugandplay.com. don't mind me, it's an imaginary film, right? There's nothing like that. Or I don't know, probably there should be something like that. I don't know. The name is very cute name, anyways. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on this and I'm going to duplicate it. So how did I duplicate it? I'm holding down alternate on my keyboard and I'm basically dragging it. So each time I press an alternate on my keyboard, you will see that particular underneath cursor that appears, shows that it is ready for duplication. Apart from that as well, you can also use Ctrl D to basically duplicate. So either Ctrl D, alternate and drag to duplicate anyone. All right, let me go ahead and zoom into this and I will call this my navbar. So this is going to be my navbar, right? And I'm going to make it just a standalone thing. So with my icon here standing at 32 px height, I'm just going to bring it to ensure that it does not exceed this particular point. So once I have that there, the next thing I want to do right now is my fintech or my menu items. So let's plug and play logo one. All right, let's click this and I'm going to type fintech. So this is going to make use of my menu item. So this is the icon here. So let's just use a very regular or popular fonts family or font space called Poppins. I think that would serve. So I'm going to make that medium, right? So it will be a little bit thick, and I'm going to give that 16 since it's my menu, so I want it to be a little bit big. I'll just leave the line height here to be auto, right? Automatically set. So once I have this here, the next thing I want to do right now is to duplicate this so I would have a lot of things. So I'll just go back and I'll type fintech here. All right, so let me put it like that. I'll say fintech, so I'll duplicate it. I'll say business owners. I'll say or let's not say fintech, let's say product, right? So they'll see list of our products. So let's call this one business owners. All right, so I'm just basically forging these things. All right, so I'll hold both of them together and I'm going to add auto layout, right? So the moment I click on auto layout, you see what happens here. It creates a frame one for me. So I'll go and rename it. So I'll just call it my menu, right? So I want to give it a spacing. Now, note the spacing. I'm not just giving it any kind of spacing. I'm actually going to give it a spacing according to what my grid point, right? So that's the spacing I intend to basically give it, right? So spacing according to my grid point. So multiplication of 4. So I want it to be very wide space. So I'm going to give it something like 40. So I want it to have a very wide space. That's 40 there. So all right, so that everything is aligned at the center, just like this. So I'll click this as well, duplicate it, Control D for that. Then I'll change this to developers. So this is where we are going to see for developers. So this basically that's where they're going to access our doc. So once I have that there, I can now take this up to make part of my menu, and I'm going to merge it with this particular one here, the logo. So notice as I always use auto layout, that's another thing you need to notice. In order for you to get the perfect alignment, you also need to be using auto layout. So principle of alignment. So one thing I want you guys to get is not just knowing that, okay, there's a principle of alignment that simply means that if you align this like this, you align this like that. I also want to see you and watch me and observe the way I use my alignment in the design to create beautiful designs. So the next thing we're going to do right now is click here. So let's actually make this logo our black logo, right? So let's not have color, so just call it black. So let me change this logo to black, so everything will be grayscale. So I'll click this now. I'll also click this. So I'm selecting the menu and the logo, and I'm going to add auto layout. So once I add auto layout to it, I want a space. But I want the space to be bigger. So I will still give it 56. So why am I choosing 56? 56 is also divisible by 4. So I'm observing that particular spacing principle there. Remember, the spacing principle number 1 is that we choose a grid point and we observe that grid point around all of our designs. So we have 56 here, and we also, inside the menu on its own, we have 40. So once I have this, you see that we'll now take a look at the auto layout alignment. So I want it to be aligned at the center, right? Somewhere around here, right? So vertically at the center. Since I'm using auto layout, so I'll use auto layout to align it. So you see the way now the the menu items, that is the product, business owner, developers, they are well aligned with our logo. So it could be at the top, it could be at the bottom, but the best thing for menu will always be what? At the center. So you want to always observe what? Center alignment. So now that we have a perfect center alignment or stuff like this, so instead of it to call it frames, so another good practice, best practice is always name your stuffs. So we're going to call this logo plus menu. So let's call it logo plus menu. So that is it here. So we have our logo plus menu. So the next thing I also want to have in our design should be a button, right? So let's quickly create a button component and probably just drop it somewhere, right? So the first thing I would normally love to do to create my button component is to just type in a text here, and I'm going to call this particular text label. So once I have my text called label, the next thing I also want to do is to go ahead and basically just give it auto layout, or just click on frame here and draw the frame around it. So if I draw a frame around it, the text will automatically be inside, right? So let me give this particular one probably a full black. All right, so the button on is a dark button, and we have our text here, label. So of course, since we are creating a button, let's just go ahead and call this button. Then we are going to do what now? So the next thing that we are going to do is to go ahead and add auto layer to our button. So let's add this auto layer to our button. So now that we have this nicely looking auto layout to a button, the next thing that we could do is to go ahead and add some spacing left and right? So one of the principles I use on my button is to ensure what I call 2:1. 2:1 simply means whatever spacing I give it left and right and top and bottom, left and right is going to be times 2 that particular spacing. So if right here the spacing I'm giving it right here is something like, let's say 12. Okay, let me not give it from there. It is all, see, it has separated it now. So let me give it from here. So top and bottom 12, right? Here is going to be what? 24. Right? Notice I did that intentionally, right? It simply means that if here is what? 24, here should be what? 12, right? So that is 2:1 or 1:2, depending which one you're calling first. All right, so the label here is 16, which is our text, is 16px, of course, right? So we have that now. We now have our style, our amazing looking button. So another thing that we could do at ease is to basically just make our button a component, right? So that in our component, we should be able to have another type of button that we are going to call our text button. So we'll create another variant. So I just click the plus sign. So let me Ctrl Z. So once you make it a component by clicking that icon there, you click on add variant like this, it will give you another button. So now, the thing about our this particular button now, so we want to create different type. So let's call this one text, right? Let's call it text. Guys, text button. So this instead of property one, let's call it type, right? So our type. So this particular one type, let's call it solid, right? So this is our solid button. So this is our text button. So because this is our text button, it's not going to have a field, right? So let's adjust that. So the field, no field, right? So something like this. So something like this flies. So now that we have something like this right now, we could actually just go ahead and start designing our button and start making use of our button. So let us drop it here, right? Same page, let's just drop it here. So now each time, because of we've made it a component, when we go to our assets right now, we should be able to see our button. So I can drag our button and bring it here. So another thing that we could do to our button as well is to add another property by adding the label here and coming over here, and you're going to see what layer. You see create boolean property. If you scroll down a little bit under here, text label, you're going to see something here. You see create text property. So we want to create a text property, right? So let's just call this one label. So label, the value is label, no problem. Click on create property. So let's do the same thing here too as well. So right here, we'll come over and select the previously created label. So once we have that done, we have our button here right now. So the next thing we just want to do is to come over under label here and define the text I want on that particular button. So let's call this particular text create account. So once we type it here, it automatically updates here. So that is what that label does for us. And this is me just designing, not talking about the core principle. So I'll bring this one here, I'll paste it here, I'll leave it here, I'll duplicate it, right? And I will change the text from create account to something like, let's say, login works. Then, of course, our type, we don't want it to be solid, we want it to be what? Text. So, and the color, now that it's text, we want that particular color to be black, so let's put it here. Right, this works. So later we'll just go and fix the color thing. So now we have our two buttons, right? So we have the create account, we have the login. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to click this, and click this together. And guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to add auto layout. Now always notice, observe me adding auto layout. Now, for the auto layout, the spacing between them, right? That's another thing again that we need to decipher. So when it is two buttons in a button group, and because of the button on its own already have margin, so I always try not to add any space between that particular button. So I'm going to give it 0 here. So no space. Then the group itself, we could just call it what? BTN group. So that is our button group, right? So now, let's take a look at some of the spacing that we've observed. Now, the first things that we did is to define our alignment. So this alignment, or this layout, sorry, enables us to know where we are going to align our design. Well, now, because of this layout, we are aligning our design in this particular margin and in this particular margin. So the first things first is the principle of alignment. We created our layout and observed that particular spacing there, that alignment. Now, apart from that particular one, again, we created our button. Now, one of the principles that we used for our button is 2:1. Now, don't forget that, right? So you might be writing these things down. 2:1. So that means right here, we have, if the space top and bottom is like 12, left and right for the button should be times 2 of that particular value. That's 2. And that's the principle of spacing for the button. Now, when it is a button group, because the button already has some space, there is no need to add a space between that particular button, right? So we could have login and create account, and the space between them would be 0, right? So we came again and we did the same thing here again, and we observed another one. So we created our menu item, we give it a space of 40, observing our principle, our grid points, which is what? By 4. Then when we align, I will merge the menu items and the logo together. We ensure that the alignment is centralized. See, that is some of the principle that we've covered, right? Just designing our what? Our menu, our navbar, sorry. So I'll go ahead, since our navbar, I'll go ahead and I will add auto layout to it. So this is our auto layout. Now it looks really big, right? Crazy. So because our auto layout, so top and bottom is like 35, right? 30. So this is what. Okay, let's see what this one is. So this one is the spacing left and right. So top and bottom is 35. Let's give it 0. So this stuff is giving us a fixed height. We wouldn't want a fixed height, so we'll change it to what? Hog here, right? So it's a vertical hog. So once we have it there, hog there, so we can now specify our top and bottom. So one of the spacing I always give is 20. So 20 is good, right? So with 20, you could see the height of our navbar is already 88. So top and bottom, we have like 20 there, which is good. So for the left and right, we don't need to put anything there actually, because it's also obeying our margin. So now that we have this, you could see now this spacing is 30 and 512, but this stuff will not be responsive, such a way that if we do it like this, see, it's not responsive. So for us to make it responsive, we just need to come over here and change it to what? O2. So I'll say AUTO O2. So with O2 now, we could have our responsive navbar. See, whatever, if we drag it, it's going to be responsive. So that looks nice. So now we have our navbar. So since we have our navbar, this could actually, in most cases, what you will want to do, things like navbar, because they are reusable, you actually want to make them a component, right? You actually want to make them a component. But I'm just going to leave it like this. So in fact, let's make it a component. So we'll make it a component and we'll just drop it here. So anytime we want to change our navbar, we can always come to let's make that a component. So our navbar is also a component, so we'll just make that a component and we'll drop it there. So now the next thing that we want to design is our hero. So let's convert this one to our hero. So let's change the name of this frame. Let's call it what's hero. All right, so I'm going to call that hero there. So once I have that as our hero, let's delete this. So this is where we are going to have like the hero of our design. So as I said earlier on, it's a fintech application, right? So let's design the first hero. So the first thing I want to do is to define my text. So now one of the principle of alignment is the fact that if you have your text by the left hand side, right, your image should be at the right hand side. So I would just drop some text right now and I will explain. And I'll use this to explain the principle of alignment as well in your design as a UI designer. So first things first, let me start by saying type in my text, right? So I'll just type the text plug and play for fintechs, right? So put it there. So poppins as usual. I want a very large text, probably like 96, that large. I want it to be bold, and I also want it to be capitalized. So I'll click here, make it capitalized, and I want it to be gray. I don't want it to be full black, so I'll do it like 575757 color. All right, something like that. Then I don't want it to occupy more than half. So we'll switch, we'll bring it down here. So this should be like half of it, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right, something like that basically works. Something like that works for me, right? So the next thing we want to do is to check the auto height is too much. So I want to reduce it to like 108 thereabout. So with this, I have something like this. So I want to also select this fintech here, and probably let's see if I can make this capital letter T, right? I should be able to make that. Probably. Okay. Let's see how it is before. I'm just control. Okay, let's leave it like this. Then I would highlight it here and make this full black. All right, something like this works. So we now have something like this. It just basically display more of the fintech. All right, cool. So let's take a look at it again. Poppins, bold, 96, line height 108, and everything looks nice. So we have this our big text here. So now we have our big text here. The next thing I want to do is I want to display a very small text down it. So this is going to be our description text, right? So for our description text, I'm going to click it here and drop it here, and I'm going to type some words now. I'm going to type why. Okay, is coming out big. I don't want it to be big, so I want it to be regular, and I want the sizing to be like 20, not more than 20 for that, so that works. And of course, I don't want it to be capitalized, so I'll just remove the casing thing. All right, then it's going to be auto, of course, the line height auto. All right, let's just do that. So put it here. So let me start typing now. I will say why go through so many financial service providers when you can go through ours. So the idea behind plug and play is the fact that new fintech company can actually build on their existing infrastructure, or one for all your, let's do all your financial services. All right, so sometimes when you're designing it might be a little bit tasking to come up with copies. All right, so I'll just adjust it there. So we have our nice copy. So one of the things I want to do is to determine our hero text, right? So I'm going to select this together. In order for us to always observe my spacing, so in order for us to have an amazing spacing here, I'm going to make it auto layer. So I'm selecting the two texts together and I'm adding auto layer to it. So once I add auto layer to it now, I'll be able to just specify my preferred distance. So my preferred distance is 8. So I don't want to meet so much distance, so just 8 space between the headline and the subheading, right? So guess what I want to do next? The next I want to do is bring something like this. Let me just duplicate this button group and bring it here. So I also want to have something similar like this, right? So, but in this case, I want the text button. So let's readjust it. So I want the text button to be the second one here. So this first one is create accounts. I want it to be something like get started. So I'm going to type get started here, and right here, instead of login here, I'm going to type request a demo. So I'm going to type request a demo. I think I didn't spell my request here. That should be Q, not G. All right, cool. So get started, request a demo. So that's our button group here. So we could have it now. So this other one, don't forget to always name your stuff. So let's call this hero text or hero copy. So let's just call it hero copy. That makes sense. So our hero copy and our button group can also be another um, auto layout again. So I'll select them together. I'll add auto layout to it, and the spacing now is going to be times 2. So 8 times 2 is going to be 16, right? So let's give it like 16. Okay, 16 seems too close. Let's give it like 32. So 32 seems really perfect. So we have 8 here, then we have what, 32 here. But if you still look at it, 32 divided by 4 is still divisible by 4. Note I did not use 30, right? I'm using the 8-point grid system. So I'm ensuring that any spacing I choose is going to be what? Divisible by what? By 4. Now take a look at this. So we have this right here. So the next thing I want to have here, so I want to have like an image by this side. So I'll come over here, right? And I will just declare a very simple image, right? Probably something like this. Probably something like this, right? Then so something not so much. So I would hold down Alt key here on my keyboard so I can just only drag this so that everything will not drag. If I'm not holding down Alt, everything will actually resize or add radius. I just want a full bunch radius here, so you could actually look at it. All these other ones are 0. So this could be an image I could have here. So I want to have an image here, probably an image of someone operating a phone or something of that nature. Then I also want to have probably something like this. Yeah, something like this actually. Something like that. And let's see how it goes. So I want to make it white. So I'm thinking in my head right now, I want to add probably an alert or something of that nature. Something like this. Let's give it a little bit of border radius. So since that's an alert, let's give it a little bit of border radius, or we could choose not to even give it. It depends. But let's give it 20. Okay, no, 20 is too much. Let's see 10. So because I'm using 4 points, let's always use something divisible by 4. So I think it works. So let's give it shadow, a very light shadow. So I know that we've not discussed about principle of shadow yet, so we're still going to talk about that. So I'm going to give the Y around 40. So don't worry. Later we're going to talk about the principle of shadow. I'm going to give this like 80 times 2 of that. So I'm going to give this like minus 40. So something of that nature. Then I'm going to look for something that is not fully black. All right. So in order for me to see my design very well, let me just hide this. Let me hide the layouts. All right. So okay, this looks like a very soft shadow and everything is coming out nice. So let's just leave it there. So this is probably something like this. A pop out like this. This nature will not be bad. Then probably have another smaller one here. Yeah, something like this would be nice. All right, so let's turn back our layout back on and see what we have. So this works. So I would love to increase the size to be a little bit bigger. So let's see again. Oops, see, I didn't select it. Just imagine me. Okay, let's do it now. It's not selecting. It's not giving me what I want. I want this. I want half of it divided by 2. All right, perfect. So something like this could work. All right, that works. Then now take note that anything that we're doing, we don't want it to exceed half of it. So this could even come as far as this, right? Doesn't matter. So we have all of this together, but all of this is going to be our, so let's just select everything like this and just Control G to group it, right? Let's say Control G. So this is going to be our hero image. So let's say hero iPhone IMG. This other one here, let's call it copy plus BTN. That is copy plus button. Right, that looks cool. Then we have these two things here. So because this is our hero, now notice, now the first thing or the first principle that we observe here, I actually want this image to be bigger. So let me extend it. I actually want it to be bigger. Something like 560 thereabouts should work. So let's come over here and give it like 560 height. All right, that works. That works. That works. All right. So now that we have something like that, that works. So now we have this. So this is our hero image actually. Then we have this one together. So now one of the principle of alignment, especially when you're designing a hero where you have text here and image here, is that you want to ensure that if the text is here, the image is here. If the text is here, the image here. If the image is here, the text is here, right? So that is one of the principle of alignment. I'll still explain this further. So now the next thing I'm going to do is that I'm going to add auto layout to this whole thing, right? So I love auto layout a lot. It just makes your design pretty. So we have it here. So we're just going to add auto layout. So we're going to add auto layout. So the moment we add auto layout now, we have our top and bottom, right? Now our top and bottom, we want to give it towards 56. So I'm going to type 56. So now you could see that our gutter spacing is still respected and it's still 40 for our gutter spacing, right? And everything still look like amazing. So we have 56 here, we have 56 here, right? Side by side, we have 100, which still fall in line with what we want. So this is how our hero is looking like. So now if I get a copy of my navbar, let me go to asset and basically just drag out a copy of my navbar here. And we're not going to make this one. Let me just duplicate this and I bring this together right now. I could add auto layout. So I'm selecting my navbar, my hero together, and I'm adding auto layout to it. So if I add auto layout to it right now, this spacing here is going to be 0. Oops, I didn't do that well. So click on it. This spacing here is going to be what? 0. All right, so this one now is going to be what? Our home page. So this is going to be our home page. So now you could see the way I did it. I didn't just drew a frame and basically start designing. So I'm designing section by section, right? So if I click on this particular home right now and I choose to present it to preview, so let's see what we have. All right, let's wait for that. So while we are waiting for our preview section to come up, let's go back to our design. Now, I also want to explain something real quick. And what I want to explain is the fact that our hero section could be this. Now, let's say this is not an hero section, right? Where how you want to align your stuffs is if you have image to the left, you want to have your text or your other content to the right. So like this now, I could just come here and just drag this and bring it here. Click on my image here and take it to the top. You see, it does automatically switch. And this is also an amazing design, right? It could be designed for something else, right? So it's either you have it left and right or right and left. But if it is for hero, it is always good that your text and other things comes first. That means it should be at the left hand side, while the image should be at the right hand side. So this is one of the way you could actually align a content inside the section. So let's duplicate this again. So let's duplicate it. So apart from this again, another way that we could choose to align it is vertical alignment. So for vertical alignment, let's change this our auto layer direction to something like this. Right, so just permit me to stretch this a bit. And so we are going to ensure that everything, for vertical alignment, you want to ensure that everything is aligned at the center, something like this. And I would want my text here to come first. So, and if it is aligned at the center, every content here should also be centralized. So I'll come over here, I'll ensure that my text is centralized, and probably just increase it a little bit, like this, ensuring that the text itself is actually centralized like this. Ensure that this text itself too as well is also centralized like this. Then the auto layout between them, which is my copy, ensure that is also centralized too. Then the general thing, I'll also ensure that it's also centralized too. So now we could now have something like this. Let's stretch this a bit. Now we could now have something like this, right? So something like this, probably I would even want to probably put um a very short description here. So we could have something that looks like this. Now, ideally, probably not this kind of image, right? So let's change our design. So let's do something like this. So let's delete this one. Let's make this one like 500. So let's stretch it to this point. Something like this. So it stops here, basically. So you could see that, so this could also be another hero as well. So now this is three different alignments, ways you could align stuff inside a section that I just showed you guys. So the first one is this. You could align your content to the left side and your image content to the right hand side. The second one, you could also align your image to the right hand side and your text to the left hand side. The third one is that if it is vertical alignment, then everything could be centralized like this, where you have your text centralized, your image centralized, so everything is following this centralized alignment. So now this here is center alignment. In fact, let's call this one center. Let's call it center here. All right, centralized. So everything here is actually centralized. Right, this other one, now we have the image to the right and the text to the left. Right here we have the text to the left and the text to the right. But I told you guys that if it is for hero, it is always good to keep your text to the right hand side. Now, not just that, again, observe the second alignment. When this section is being clicked on, right, I didn't click here. So imagine it's like this, it's not going to be pretty, right? So notice this. So when you align left and right, so it's like this. So at this particular point right now, this text is aligning to the top, right? Or you could also align it to the bottom. So like this is aligned to the bottom. So the best way that you also want to align it is align it to the center. Now don't use your hand to move these things or just move it manually. That is the reason why auto layout is there for you, to get your alignment properly. So you could see now the alignment is aligned vertically at the center. Vertically at the center. Observe that, vertically at the center, which is pretty. So you could see now vertical alignment at the center is actually pretty. So we have all of this, right? So the next thing that we want to do now is to see if we could design another section. So even if I stop recording this particular video right now or this lesson right here, at least we've explained some form of principles behind alignment. So towards the end, we are also going to do a recap about this particular principle again. So I'll go ahead and draw out a frame to and ensure that is the right size, which is 1440. Right, so in this one, we want to create another section. So in this lesson, we'll be creating about 3 sections, right, just to drive home our point. So in this section now, we'll be creating another one, and this is going to be the trusted by section. So for the trusted by section, this is what we are going to do. I'm going to create a text. In fact, sometimes let me just duplicate this text. Sometimes I'm lazy to create things afresh. So this text, let's call it trusted by. Trusted by. You know now that we've not done like our typography style, so allow me to just freestyle. So right here now, I'm going to ensure that this one is this, and I'm going to have probably 24, a little bit bigger, and probably semi-bold, just a little bit thicker there, right? So it could be somewhere around here. So that's what we want to do. So let's go ahead and add our, let us call it trusted by. Trusted. All right. trusted hyphen by. Alright, that's cool. Then the next thing, let's add our layout grid. So the one that we created before, so desktop. See, I didn't even spell the desktop well. Look at the way I spelled it. Let me edit the style and correct that my spelling. There should be key there. All right. So the next thing I want to do right now, I want to have like series of logos around me here. So for me to do that, I'll create a frame and I will ensure. So I want to have it like 6. So that means I could divide this. Each one could occupy up to. So I'm holding shift key on my keyboard to have a perfect square, and I'm ensuring that I'm using this my layout and to ensure that each one occupies like 2 columns. So you could see that there, right? So don't forget, that's what I'm doing. So I will just call this one, what should we call it now? Let's call it logo wrapper, something like that, right? So let us call it wrapper. There's no need to call it logo wrapper. Let us call it wrapper. Then we'll have an ellipse shape here where our logo will live. So this should be, let's see, something like 60. Okay, 56 could work, but let us make it 60. 60 cool is also cool. We'll just centralize it. Everything should always be at the center. So the constraint will automatically be center, which is good. So we have something like this. So this is going to be our logo. So instead of ellipse, let's rename it to logo. So once we have it like this, all we just need to do right now is to duplicate. So I'm going to duplicate it and put it here. So as usual, you guys already know what I normally do next is to hold both of them together and add auto layout. So this is going to be our logos, right? So let's just type logos, or let's just put its firms here instead of logos. Now I'm going to duplicate this, Control D, 3, 4, 5, 6. So everything is like this now. So all I need to do is to add some logos to it here. So I'll click here. So there's a plugin in Figma. Just click here, plugin, search for a plugin called logo maker, right? So it will just generate random logos for us. So let's search for that particular block. It's a UI logo, actually, UI logo. So let's use that. So the plugin is called UI logo. So let's use that to get random logos. So for now, we want black and white logo, so we'll use this one. So click it. So it's just generate anything for us. So anything, hold on the circle, click it as well. It generates random logos for us, right? No, we already just generated that one. I don't like that one. Okay, this one looks nice. So random logo. Nope. Nope. Not bad, but let's see another one. Generate something else for me. Okay, that one looks good. Alright, this also looks good too. So we have let's close this. So we have series of generated logos here. So we'll just click this right now. So the next thing that we need to do is to so I don't want it to have spacing, actually. Funny enough, I don't want it to have any spacing. So I'm just going to give it 0. And I want it to be at the middle too as well. Something of that nature. So don't forget, as usual, we used to bring stuff like this. So we are using 56, right? So let's add auto layout as usual. And so it's at the center. This spacing here, don't forget. So I'm going to make it, so the spacing between the headline and everything downward, I'm going to give that 56. Then the spacing between the top and the bottom, so I'm going to say 56 times 2, which is 56 times 2 is what? So where is multiplication times 2, which is going to give us 112 for this particular one. So we have this section done and dusted with. All we just need to do is to drag it and put it inside our stuff. So you see it here. So everything is now like this. So you see why it is always good to design in this approach, right? So everything is just tree. So you can always just adjust the spacing like this. So let's come back and see what we've done. So this is what we've done so far. The logos are still coming up. So I really don't want this particular one to be, the logos to be this thick, like full black and stuff like that. So I would love something like that. Oops, I think we omitted one. So let's add that UI logo. We omitted one of the circles. See, I didn't even know. Okay. It's taking time to generate. All right, cool. So I think it will also come up when it saves. So another thing again I also would love to do is to basically just reduce the opacity. Normally it's not really good to reduce the opacity. In fact, the right thing to do, in fact, let me just do the right thing. Let me do the right thing. Right? So the right thing to do right now is actually select all of this. So they are all images, right? I'll not be able to do that. So let me just reduce the opacity. So I'll just click all of this frame here. And you see it here. Instead of 100, I'm just going to give it 50. So it's going to be slightly gray like this, right? Because they are all images, so I can't reduce it with color. So this is what we have. So same gray stuff like this. So it actually looks good. So trusted by, we have this amazing stuff right here. So because of there is this spacing between these stuffs here, it's making this trusted by far away, right? So let's correct that. So that is because each and every one of these stuffs have it inside like a box, right? So and it's making these stuffs look a little bit faster. Because of this, we might even put this at 0 so that it's not going to have that particular spacing anymore. So let's take a look at it. So something like this is actually way better. So there is no space between it. The space now is just because of this stuff. They already have their own padding, right? So we could even say, okay, so now for it not to look like if we don't add any space, let's even just add like 8 there. So that is just for this particular session, right? So it's because of we already have some space inside here. So we necessarily don't need so much space. So now you could see that we have our landing page design coming out nice. Now this is me just observing layout, observing two major principles. I'm observing this principle of spacing and also this principle of alignment. So with these two principles, just observing it, you could tell that my design is already coming out really, really nice. So everything is well aligned and everything is coming out nice. So one more section that I would love us to design before we call it an end, right? To this particular lesson on principle of alignments and um and and spacing. So let's have one more section. So I'll click on frame here. I will draw this like this. I will say let this one be 1440, the same thing too as well. I will stretch it and come over here, add my layout grid, desktop as usual. And now the funny thing is, this is a wireframe, so I don't really know, but I would love to have an image here. So I'll come over here, click on probably a rectangle. Okay, let me click on the frame, another frame. So I would love to have probably an image somewhere here. So it's going to occupy 6, of course. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And I'm going to give it a gray of, let's say, like the usual F5 kind of thing. So something like this actually will really work, right? So the next thing I want to do now, so I'm going to have probably an image of a of a phone, right? So let us assume that this is a phone, so it's always going to look like this. Let's make this one 0, 0. This is too the edges is too curved for a phone, so probably 30 will work. But 30 is too small. Let's see 50. All right, 50 looks good. So let's just say 50-50, right? And for the sake of our wireframe, let's just give it white. All right, something like this actually. So now let's save this particular element and elevation, this icon here, so that I can easily use it over and over. So I'll come over here, I'll click on plus. Let's give it a name. What should we give it now? Let's just call it elevation, right? Let's call it elements elevation, right? Okay, something like that. That's cool. So that's because I want to use something similar. In fact, let me just copy it, Control C. I would come over here and I will paste it. So I want something like this. Let's see if let's remove the clip content so that it can overlap. So something like this, and probably a big one. So something like this actually. So I'm assuming now that there might be something like a pop something like this here. We could also have something similar too, like this too as well. So if we have all of this, let's adjust our image. Because remember, nothing should actually be above this line. So everything could be adjusted like this. This looks cool. Then this one now, I could adjust it to this point so that this one should not exceed 6. So where's our 6? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Oh, we've beaten more than we can chew. This is actually where it should end. So let's adjust it a bit. Something like this works. All right. So let me hide this. Okay, this is what we have. Okay, not bad. So we're going to have an image here and probably a pop out here. I don't want this to be more than this 6. So let's zoom it. Okay, it's not more than it. This one too should not go beyond this too as well. All right, so we have something like this. This looks nice. So let's hide this a bit. So we have something. Okay, this is something like this. What I would love to have this. So just like, yeah. So I would also love to have a text. So what I'm trying to do now, I don't want whatever thing that we do here, I don't want it to take more than a half of this particular column. So we have like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So it's ending here. That's the middle. So because we also have some text I'll put here. So permit me to just make use of this same headline. In fact, not just only the headline, the entire copy here. I will need it. Let me just put something similar here too. So, but this time around, since this is not like our major H1, so we could actually make this a smaller version, right? So let's make the size in here. So something like 44 would do, or 48, sorry. 48 would also do, right? And let's change the text. This should be like auto now. So let's change the text to something like we took miles so you can take steps. All right, so let's make our steps the highlighted one. All right, so I'm already highlighting that. Later we will come back and we'll explain why I'm highlighting it. All right, so now let's come over here and type in stuff to, let's say something like plug popular fintech solutions. So I didn't spell that well. Fintech solutions, popular fintech solutions into your application so you can focus on what truly matters, comma, your customers. All right, full stop. Okay, let's adjust this, ensure that, okay, let's ensure that this copy can actually touch here. And yeah, so it's okay. So everything is no more than 6 here. So everything looks nice. So something like this actually. So the next thing I would love us to do is to have like the steps, of course, around here, right? So I have some icons. So let's see icons that we could use, right? Icons that we could use. So still using a iconly plugin. So I'll search for an icon. Let me go and look for like about 4 icons that we could use. So iconly. So let's use this one. Right. All right. So let's look for two tones, broken. Okay, let's use like broken. So for register, let's use this shield. So it's here. Let's also use, so I have like register plug and stuff. So I will just use like this one. Okay, let's use something like this too as well. So let's just call this one. This is what they will integrate plug. Let's search for something like play as well. Play will work. Let's also search for something like a star, right, to depict win. All right, cool. So we have all of this. So what we could do right now, it's recommended that when creating your icon component, ensure that it is 24. So I'll just make it 24. I'll make it a component. I'll do the same thing too as well here. Make it 24, and also make it a component. Drop it here. Make it 24, and the reason I make it 24 is another principle for icons as well, right? So 24 is like the recommended design. All right, the recommended size to 24 there. So one thing again we could do, we could just draw a frame around this thing, right? And just call this one icons. So this is going to be part of our, well, I say design system right now, or component, right? Let us keep it. So anytime we want to add more icons, we can always come here and do that, right? So that would always work. So let's just align this. It's not that we're going to use it for anything, but you get it. So we could say the spacing should be like 30. All right, that's cool. If we add this to it too, I want it to be like 30. I want it to be that 30. Perfect. So if we select everything together, we can easily adjust the space. Alright, that's cool. So we have our icon there. So you notice now that if we come here under icons, we have all of these icons. So that's the reason why I did the arrangement like this. Alright, because I want to use all of those icons. So let's come and use them here now. So for me to use it here, I'll click on the frame here and I will draw. So I want this to occupy like 3. So I would let me give this frame a name. So what name should we give it now? So this should be our steps, right? So let us call it steps. So these are our steps frame, right? Or wrapper, whatever thing. So because this one now should actually be steps. So this one should be step singular. All right, cool. All right, so inside our step, the first thing first, we want an icon. So I want probably something like this. I want an icon. I also want a text, and so probably a text. Let me just type it. I also want a text. So let's call it register. So this text, I want it to be like 20, and I want it to be medium, a little bit thick, right? And okay, that's cool. Something like this. I also want another text too as well, but this other one, I want it to be 14. So these are like our body text, regular of course, and the color should be a lighter color, a grayish color like this. This works. Then I want to type in something, right? So I'm thinking of a text I could type there. Okay, let me just type something like get started. Sometimes to come up with copy, get started by creating an account. So let's start with some copy. An account as a merchant. All right, something like this works. Just do it like this. All right, that's cool. So now, as usual, we will add auto layout. So the auto layout between these two texts, I'll add auto layout to it, and I'll say something like 4 is okay. Then once we have that, then to our entire frame, we could also add auto layout to our entire frame as well, ensure that the spacing around it, top and bottom, is like 20. So I will actually want 20 thereabout, but I actually want this to be up to this. So this other text now should instead of fixed, let it to be no, not fill. Look at what I did, Control Z. Let it be hog, not necessary. Alright, so something like this actually works. So I want to ensure, okay, I still have that there. So like this works. So we have 20 around it. 20 around it. So we have like hog. So we have this too as well. So let's click this. So the spacing here, I want it to be a lot more. So let's see. We could give it 24, 20, 24 works. So 24 works. So spacing with 24. Then this our icon. I want it to be bigger. Like 24 times that is 48. So the icon should be bigger. Something like this works. All right, so I have my step now, right? So all I just need to do is to duplicate this thing. So let's duplicate it. So ideally, you can even make this a component. In fact, let's make it a component. The truth is, anything that you want to use again, you should actually make it a component. That is the idea of component, right? So you could actually make it a component and just drop it here. You never can tell who might need it. So let's take an instance of it. So the reason why I'm making it a component so that it will be easy to make changes. So I can duplicate it right now and put it here and say this one, this icon, let's change it to plug. Let's use filter there for it. Then this one, I'll call it plug. Then this other one here, I will call it, what should I type now? Let's say integrates into your app any into your app any fintech solutions, right? Something like that. Any fintech solutions. All right, this works. This works. All right, let's hit this together. We're going to make it auto layout as usual. Plus sign, auto layout, centralize. So the spacing between them is 40. Everything is nice. Let's increase the steps. So we want the steps to be like 4 steps. Right, so duplicate it again like this. All right, so this one now, let's hit it to this tool as well, make it auto layout again and ensure that the spacing is no more than 40. So now we have 40 and in between it here we'll also have 40. So this one here, let's change this to something else. Instead of register, let's have play. Then let's add the text here. Let's call this one launch your app with exciting feature in days, not years. All right, that makes sense. So let's call this other one win, or we could say keep winning. All right, so let's say keep winning. All right, this works. Then let's say celebrates and celebrates. Let's do something like celebrates your wins and achievements with your users. All right, this makes sense. All right, now we have all of this together. So because of we have all of this together, this now looks so small. So let's stretch it. Aha. So this our so-called thing. Let's ensure that it is aligned. So all right, something like that. Something like this still works. Doesn't spoil anything. All right, cool. Can even stretch this a little bit. I'm just looking at it from aesthetic point of view. So now we have this and we also have this. So this at this particular point, we would actually want to make this. So we have this is our groups. So let's just say all steps. So I love to name my frame all steps. So ensure, all right, perfect. Then this one is row. So no need to call it frame 5. So it is individual row. So all steps. So we have our all steps. We have our copy here. This is no longer a hero copy, right? Let's just call it copy. We have our copy here. So our copy and our all steps. Let's add auto layout to them so that we could specify the space here, right? So we could go ahead and give it another 40, but I want to give it 40. I want to give it like 32. so that to be closer than this. So yeah, so I have 32 there. So what we want to do next now is we have this one here. So let's just call this one image. So this is going to be our image basically. So our steps now have those two elements. Now, if you noticed that this one now is our content, so let us call this one content or details. Let us say contents. Alright, so we have our content, we have all of this, then we have our image, where we have this too as well. So we can easily do what? We can easily group these things together. That's just the truth. We can easily group them together. Easily. So the thing now is so I'll select this like this. Now I'll add auto layer to it as usual. Top and bottom should be remember we always use 56, right? So we're going to type 56 there. Then this one I would love it to be auto, so that I can easily stretch this like this. All right, cool. And everything will look nice. Then left and right. Oops. So everything will look right. So let's see what we have. So we have little glitch here, but let's take it here and see. All right, bring it here and bring it to the bottom of the whole thing. So this is what we currently have. So I think this is quite good, but I don't like the fact that this one is coming out like this. So let's go and fix that up. So for us to fix that up, we have to come inside here now and actually create a group. I'm going to say Ctrl G to create a group. The reason I'm creating a group so that I could bring these things out like this. Then instead of this image, so we don't need this frame, so we'll put it here like this. So that's what we have now. So with this now, everything can be adjusted, right? Amazing. So this is what I'm talking about here. So everything looks cool. So another thing again, so if you won't feel like this stuff looks too close to each other, that is the gray area. So we could choose to expand that gray area a little bit, probably something like this. All right, just a little bit using our eyes, but we don't want it to be so much. So this is how it looks like right now, right? So this looks really cool and really pretty, right? So this is we just observing space based on section, and we could go on and on to design this particular landing page, right? And if we go on and on to design this landing page, we have something that is amazing already. So one thing I will advise you guys to do, this is where we are going to end the video. I will advise you can go ahead and design other sections, right? Let me give you ideas of other sections that you could add. You could add sections for display of how the admin dashboard is going to look like. You could add sections for API, sections for testimonial, section to request a demo, and also footer. So by the time you add all those sections, your landing page will be complete. Now, before we end, let me just give a recap of everything that we've treated and all the principles that we've covered. So the first things first, the first principle that we covered is the principle of layout, right? So we said that for you to have an alignment, we need to add layout. So we'll add layout here. And if you observe, this layout enables us to align everything just by the left side and also by this particular right side. So there is no design that is going to exceed this particular margin. So that is one thing that we did with the layouts that we did 100 that we did. Now, after we did that too as well, another thing again that we went on to do is ensuring that we have this alignment here and it was now centralized. So we now have our image here, our text here, and I now told you guys that if you have a section, you could have image. If you have image by the left, you want to have informations by the right hand side. So something like this. So we have one where we have information left, image right, information left. Or if it is center, then the text itself needs to be centralized. So you could see your choice of alignment. So like this right now, if we come over here and align this image to the right hand side, it will not be cool, but it will be better if it is aligned like this, right? Centralized. So with centralized alignment, everything goes fine. And so after we did that, we also look at the 4-point grid system and ensuring that all the spacing that we use across our design are divisible or can be multiplied by 4, right? Simply means that the menu item here will also have like 4 points everywhere, right? So this is this for the first day. Two major principles is treated today, and that's the principle of alignment and the principle of spacing. See you guys in our second day. We will be treating more UI design principle that will make you design beautiful user interfaces. Right? So don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Don't forget to also subscribe on nedi monthly subscription plan so that you can get mentored by professionals and also get recommended for jobs and also get personalized portfolio review. Let me know in the comments if you love this video and if you love to see more of this kind of content on our platform, right? So see you guys in the second day. Bye bye.